Hey, everybody, real quick, before we get into the Season 2 recap, if you need a Season 1 recap of The Summer I Turned Pretty, just hit the tab in the upper right-hand corner. It'll take you right to it. Season 2 picks up right where Season 1 left off with the aftermath of the kiss. There's that young, excited, nervous feeling that both Belly and Conrad are having. But then the focus turns more from their situation to what's going to happen when they tell Jeremiah. And the first thing Belly has to do is tell Conrad that she was hooking up with Jeremiah. It's a little jarring for Conrad. He didn't expect that. He does ask Belly, do you want to be with him? And she says, being with you is all I ever wanted. And that's all Conrad needs to hear. He's pretty convinced that if he talks to Jeremiah, Jeremiah will calm down, he'll get over it pretty quickly, and he'll move on to the next thing, because that's just what Jeremiah does. The two then walk back in the house, and they're greeted with Susanna, who is drinking coffee, smiling from ear to ear because she knows exactly what probably just happened. They split up, though. Conrad goes to talk to his mom about everything that's happening, while Belly goes to break the news to Jeremiah. And that does not go as planned. Conrad thinking that Jeremiah would just get over it, he doesn't. He's livid. He can't believe that Belly led him on, making him think that they would be a thing together, but it turns out she was just after Conrad this entire time. That he was just a side piece. It gets so bad that when she refers to him as her best friend, he says, no, you don't get to call me that. And he walks out. So that relationship is going to take some time to heal back up. It did give Belly some pause, though. When she linked back up with Conrad later that day, she said, I don't know if this is right for me and you to be together at this time. I mean, you need to be with Jeremiah. Your mom is going through cancer. She's going to be going through this progressive trial. I can't have you two fighting over me during that time. You need to be there for each other. She thinks that maybe they should just hit pause on the whole thing. Conrad's pretty surprised about that. He doesn't want to do that. But Belly's pretty stern that they do need to hit pause on this quasi-relationship fling that they're having. And they did. For about 6 weeks. Conrad had headed off to Brown, and Belly had headed off to Westchester, Pennsylvania for her junior year, but distance makes the heart grow fonder, and eventually Conrad ended up calling her up, having a conversation on the phone. One night turned to 2, turned to 3, and next thing you know, they were just on the phone together all the time, keeping each other company at night, and even though they weren't physically together, emotionally they were. They didn't just talk about good things either. They talked about the tough things, like the fact that Adam cheated on Susanna. That turned into the relationship that Belly's parents have with each other, and overall dealing with divorce. Finally, around October, Conrad couldn't keep the distance between them any longer. He ended up driving to Westchester on a break. He just needed to see Belly. He also needed to let her know that he talked to Jeremiah and they squashed their beef. Jeremiah is kind of over it at this point. While Jeremiah's over it, Conrad isn't. It's the whole reason he showed up at her doorstep. He realized that anytime he talks to her, he's just happy, and standing in front of her and not being able to kiss her is torture. So that's when she puts him out of his misery and kisses him. It's adorable. But that was October, and those are all memories. Because fast forward to June, and man, it's a different story. Conrad and Belly are no longer together, and Susanna has unfortunately passed away. Belly is going through a haze. She's kind of just shuffling through life, unable to process the losses that she's had, both with Susanna and with her relationship. Also, the relationship with Conrad and Jeremiah has not been the same. Not just for her, but also for Steven. Because of what happened with Belly, he kind of lost 2 friends because they rarely keep in touch anymore. It's not all bad news for Steven, though. He got into Princeton, he's going there, and he also got named valedictorian, which is cool. He'll be giving his valedictorian speech the next day at graduation. Belly, though, definitely won't be getting into Princeton. Ever since what happened in her life, her grades have tanked. Before she leaves school, the guidance counselor pulls her aside and says, Belly, what happened? I mean, at one point, Ivies, they were a possibility. Now, you might not even get into Penn State, which, for those that don't know, I mean, that is a 2008 housing crisis crash. And it's not just the grades. Belly got kicked off the volleyball team as well. And it's unfortunate because there was a team called Finch that was looking at her to give her a scholarship, but she's not interested in going there anymore because that's where Jeremiah is headed. The guidance counselor kind of just gives her a typical guidance counselor speech about how she needs to get her grades up and how it's unfortunate about the passing of Susanna and the family friend and all that, but you got to kind of pull yourself up. It's a nicer version of Dr. Phil. Belly, though, isn't the only one that's kind of shuffling through life ever since the loss of Susanna. Laurel is basically doing the same thing. She's holding it together by a thread. She did finish her new book, and it's really good, but it's about the loss of Susanna. Because of that, she doesn't really want to go on book tours or anything like that. And it's also hard because the whole family is constantly reminded about Susanna. Prime example of that is when they go to leave for Steven's graduation and the doorbell rings and it's a care package for Steven for college. I mean, this thing is loaded. It's got a laptop. It's got chargers. It's got probably $2,000 worth of items in it. And it was sent by Susanna. She had planned it right before she died. She even included a handwritten card, which Steven reads and he tells his mom, you should really check this out. But Laurel says, I'll read it later. And they head off to the graduation. And Steven gives the greatest graduation speech of all time because it's the only valedictorian speech I've ever seen where he doesn't look at a written speech. I mean, it's all off the cuff. It's capped off when he apologizes to his parents for saying, quote, BS, but then he drops the F word at the end and he gets a standing ovation. Half of his inspirational speech, though, was taken from what Susanna wrote to him in that card. Something that Laurel will find out later when she eventually reads it. But yeah, the speech went off like gangbusters. I mean, he's going viral on TikTok. He's very excited about that. And while Steven's excited, so is Taylor. And that's because finally Belly has decided to try to get out of this haze she's been walking through. She tells Taylor that she's going to go to the graduation party later that night. It's a party that Taylor really wanted her to go to, but Belly seemed like she was more content with just staying in and wallowing in grief. But when she tells Taylor after graduation that she will end up going to the party, Taylor is pumped. She wanted Belly to come out just for the sake of getting out of the house, also getting over Conrad. But she also wants Belly to come out because Taylor's got a new boyfriend. His name is Milo, and he's the lead singer of a bad cover band. Steven calls him a Machine Gun Kelly wannabe, and you can't really deny it after you see the kid. Looks like a premier D-bag. But the good news doesn't stop with just Belly agreeing to go to the party. She also tells Taylor she will be rejoining the volleyball team next year, which Taylor is also very excited about because Belly was captain. And by the way, it isn't even just Taylor that's excited that Belly's going out later that night. Even Steven's excited about it because he's had to watch his sister go through this. So he's happy that she's not just going to be sitting in the house the entire night. Belly and Steven then head off to go have a post-graduation lunch with their parents. John tries his best to convince Laurel that she really should go on this book tour. Could be therapeutic for her. She's kind of just been bottling everything up about Susanna inside. It's not good. But John had that speech with Laurel privately because the kids had to go off to get ready for the party later that night. Taylor's agreed to help Belly with her outfit, which might not be a good thing because Taylor's going for this like Kesha look with the hair and then she's dressed like a Chinese finger trap. As they're going through Belly's closet, though, she constantly seems to be reminded about something that she can't get over. This time, it's going to be Conrad's sweatshirt. And Taylor gives her some great advice. The way to get over a guy is to get under a new one. A little while later, Belly gets dressed, and Belly, Steven, and Taylor head off to the party, with Belly planning on being the DD. As soon as they arrive, Steven goes to find his friends, and after Taylor says hi to her boyfriend, her and Belly go and find the other volleyball girls, and they talk about the upcoming season. Everybody's excited about the fact that Belly will be returning to the team. They then encourage her to go and hook up with this guy that she knows. He was just your typical guy, but he gave Belly a look. Everybody knows the look. So Belly decides to go see what was up with the kid, but then Milo's band starts playing, and everyone kind of starts enjoying the music. Everybody other than Steven. Deep down, while Steven busts Taylor's chops all the time, you can tell he's still harboring feelings for her. It's also probably aided by the fact that he was dumped by Shayla. So he's on the market, and now Taylor isn't. She's got this new guy. And Steven thinks that he's just a loser. So while Milo is playing, Steven decides to try to distract some people with crowd surfing antics, but it goes awry. He ends up landing on Belly and hurting her a little bit. And slowly, this party is starting to go from fun to just bad for Belly. She decides to go see what was up with that guy that she was talking to before the band started playing. Maybe see if he's available to hook up. But it turns out he's not into Belly. He's into her friend, one of the girls on the volleyball team. But the straw that breaks the camel's back is when she's walking through the area and Steven sprays her with beer. And at that point, Belly's like, you know what? I'm going to go home. And Steven says, you can't go home. You're my designated driver. And Belly tells him, well, take an Uber. And that sparks a giant fight between the two. It's a very public fight that everybody hears. Belly reminding Steven that she's not over the fact that Susanna died, and Steven trying to remind Belly that he lost Susanna too. And not only did he lose Susanna, but he lost 2 friends because of the fact that she couldn't keep it in her pants. Man, yeah, it gets ugly. What hurts for Belly is she feels like Steven is right. Like, she did ruin things in a big way. She doesn't feel like she deserves to be happy at the moment. Taylor tries to tell her that that's not the case. She does deserve happiness, but Belly just isn't in that mindset. She drives home. She bawls her eyes out on the way. It doesn't help that she's listening to Driver's License by Olivia Rodrigo. I personally would have chose Good For You, but hey, it's a personal preference. When she gets home, her bad night gets worse because her mom wants to question her on why her grades have slipped so much. She tries to tell Belly that they're all going through the same thing, yet Belly has let it affect her way worse than anybody else. But Belly pushes back, reminding her mother that she was barely at the house. She was up in Boston taking care of Susanna, and she doesn't blame her for that, but to act like Belly should carry on as business as usual during that time would be ridiculous. Laurel starts lecturing her on responsibility, but Belly stands up and says, "A responsibility? All right, let's talk about that. You won't even promote your book because you're scared to even talk about Susanna. I waited all year for you to step up and be a parent. You gave up way before I did." And that's a gut check statement from Laurel. She thinks about it, and a little while later she calls her editor and says she's willing to do a book tour. As for Belly, she goes upstairs and starts scrolling Instagram, and she does miss the boys, Conrad and Jeremiah. She needs a friend in that moment, so she decides to call up Jeremiah. But the first thing Jeremiah asks is, "Are you with Conrad right now?" And Belly says, "No, why would I be with Conrad?" And he tells Belly that Conrad disappeared. He doesn't know where he is. He's not answering his phone. It's only been a day, but Jeremiah is definitely worried because Conrad told his roommate that everything's messed up and he took off. He's planning on going to Brown the next day to look for him. And Belly decides she's going with him. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.